Hello people, this is Mark from Courage Changeworks. Guys, hope you are well. This is a continuation in the personality playlist where I'm busy looking at identity, which is a video I've done a couple of days or so ago. Then also I have made a video on comparison, how we are sometimes being compared to someone else, or we ourselves are comparing ourselves to someone else, and how the impact of said comparisons can either be positive or negative depending on who's doing the comparison or the comparing. So in this video I want to talk to you about three different categories, groups of people who we compare ourselves against. And these are them. We can compare ourselves upwards, as in your role model, your idol, that kind of person. We can compare ourselves downwards. Or finally, we can compare ourselves to people who are similar to us. So those are the three groups in which we can compare ourselves to. Now, in each of these groups, there are positive as well as negative consequences when we do this comparing business. So I'm going to quickly run this by you so you can have a greater idea of what's going on. And I'm going to suggest to you that this is probably more relevant to yourself when you are doing the comparing yourself towards someone else, of course, that is. But of course, I cannot give the motivation if someone else compares you to a third party. I don't know. I'm hoping that this will give you, when you compare, some awareness as to what's actually going on in your own mindset. Maybe you'll become aware of what you're doing and make adequate, relevant and appropriate changes in order to stop limiting yourself and comparing yourself to others who are potentially more skilled and equipped in certain areas as what you might be, and to do something positive about it. So let's talk about this comparing business. Number one, you can compare yourself upwards. And that means you are pitching yourself against someone who you think is better than you in a particular task. Okay? The motivation might be that you want to aspire to become like them. Learn from how they got from wherever they were to wherever they now are, and see what you can learn from them in order to achieve those goals, but in your life. So it's nearly like a little bit of kind of, what can I get from them to improve me, so that I can take those improvements and apply them in my life in order to make some changes for betterment's sake. So, upwards. The negative side of this, of course, is you might feel a failure because your personality, your character might not necessarily accept those changes. If you're going to have a look at the identity process, the video that I made there, that could be part of the reason. So even though you strive to become more like your idol, the negative consequences, you might feel deflated and demotivated and potentially a failure. So my question is, why? Why do you do it? Why would anybody compare themselves against someone else just to end up feeling like a failure, demotivated? Bizarre, isn't it? But there it is. Number two, we can compare ourselves downwards. And when we do that, we assume that we are better than the person who we are comparing ourselves to. It is as if you can say, well, I've arrived here, you're not. So you're not quite as skilled in this thing called life, career, sport, whatever career choice that you have chosen to follow. The positive in all of this is you can see how far you've come. You can see how other people might struggle to achieve similar goals, and if you apply yourself right, you might help them to achieve the same thing in their lives. It's a positive thing. Of course, now the negative thing is you can be so puffed up and so full of pride and that you might end up being someone that people will despise. Drunk on the wine of power and achievement is the phrase that comes to mind. Just because you've reached certain goals doesn't give you any right to look down on someone, unless of course you're there to help them up. So be aware when you yourself compare yourself to people who have not achieved the goals in their lives as well as you have. Because they might become, you might develop a sense of arrogance and ignorance in you that might leave a foul smell in social circles when you are being spoken about. So be aware. In spiritual worlds, we talk about humility and false humility. Don't fall in those traps because it's easy. The trap is big. And trust me, when you fall in that trap, you stay stuck on there for a long time. I'm raising awareness here more than anything else. When we compare ourselves to people who are on an even keel with us, I wonder why we do that. Do we look at ourselves as we can self-justify our own behaviors because there are other people in our own peer groups that do exactly the same thing, and if they can get away with it, why can't I? It's a question that needs to be asked. Therefore, it's a question that really needs to be answered. When you're doing these kind of comparisons where you show yourself to be equal, and yet you still ask, what makes them slightly different to me? We are sort of in the same bracket in life. I wonder if there's things like jealousy and contentment and those type of emotions that brew up in you when these things take place. These are interesting questions that needs to be asked. From my point of view, it raises self-awareness. Now, as you have heard in other videos, that I say that self-awareness is the key to change. Because if you are not self-aware, you will still follow blindly after the person or people, groups, call it whatever you want, who lead you because they recognize your blindness. So my friend, I'm presenting these things to you to prick your awareness, to make you think about things. Because here's the thing, we all compare. It's part of human life. But I'm asking you to stop comparing yourself to people who are better than you in their strengths, your weaknesses, because that is destructive. Likewise, I'm going to encourage you to stop comparing your strengths to other people's weaknesses and present yourself as lofty and high and powerful and ignorant. And when you start getting drunk on that wine, it too can be very destructive. And then you say, yes, Mark, but that's all good, it's fine. Is it? And when we compare ourselves to the people who are on our wavelength, in our little category, don't be so fooled that just because they get away with it, that you should too. That too can be quite destructive. So what am I saying in all of this video here? That when you compare, it is destructive. There's very few things really that is positive when you compare, because now you've got two classifications of something that you have to compare side by side, but they're not the same. So this whole comparison process really is unfair, both on you, the comparer, and the comparee. If those words exist, great. If they don't, they're mine. I'm encouraging you to become aware of the reasons why you compare. And is it because of what you truly believe in your identity? Or could it just be that this is how life has shaped you, and maybe it's your coping mechanism of sort, it's a defense mechanism? Who's to know? The top and bottom of this particular video is simply this: comparison equals destruction, unhelpful, not good. That's my message today. No one's the same. We're all different. When I cut my finger and my blood spurts out, even though it's the same color, it might be the same blood group, my DNA is different to the next person whose blood looks pretty much the same as mine. And it's because of these little subtle differences, my skill sets and your skill sets, education, experience, religious, emotional, political, all these convictions that we have, they might be similar. They're certainly not the same. So therefore, you as a unique individual can only and should only, these words that I will talk about in another video, needs to be compared to you, as I said in yesterday's video. Then we are on a playing ground where you become referee. Then it becomes a fair game about your performance, your achievements, your goals, your ideals. Ultimately, it becomes about you. Like I said yesterday, when you compare yourself to how you were yesterday against how you were today, you might have achieved a fraction of change, which is better than no change at all. I remind you of Muhammad Ali's little saying, if you know at 50 what you did at 20, you've wasted 30 years of your life. Now my question is, how much time do you still want to waste by comparing your weaknesses to other people's strengths? That's all I want to say in this little video today. My friend, I hope that this video has caused you to think about the reasons why you compare. And I hope it pricks your awareness to say it's not a good thing to do at all. Whichever way it is, I would like to hear it in the comments box down below. Share, subscribe, you know, all the YouTube admin, you know what to do. Tell your friends and family also, please. For now, this is Mark from Kairos Changeworks, and I'll speak to you soon.